Okay, so welcome to Leveraging the Bad Elf Flex for Traditional Land Surveying. My name is Nicholas Smolowski. I'm the Director of GIS Solutions at Bad Elf. I am here today with William Wing, Registered Land Surveyor, owner and CEO of Infinity Land Surveying. It's my pleasure to be co-presenting today with Will. As Will said earlier this morning, we're going to be winging it today, ha ha ha. But honestly, Will's going to be the star of the show. I'm just going to be helping moderate. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, please go ahead and you can throw it in the chat and we will make sure at the end to get to it. All right, there he is. Hey, Will, I was just talking about you. Hopefully your ears weren't burning too much. If you have a second, before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into surveying, where you went to school, a little bit about your company? I think everybody would love to meet you.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name's William Wing. Been surveying since 2001. That's when I first started surveying in school in New Mexico. Grew up in northern New Mexico. Went to school down in Las Cruces in southern New Mexico at New Mexico State. Did the survey engineering program. Graduated in 2003, and then I moved out here to Phoenix. Started working with RBF Consulting. It was a great company. Worked with them for about 8 years, and then after the big housing bust, I went over to APS, got in on, learned how the power industry works. I was there for about 7 years, and then went out on my own. So I am Infinity Land Surveying. Have a couple other employees, and pretty small, but we do some pretty unique projects. So I'm happy to be here today. We like to get out and play in the desert as much as possible. And so, working with Bad Elf has given us an opportunity to kind of do both. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay, awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Will. Just to throw this out there, I've known Will for a number of years now. Will and I participate in a couple different state organizations for the advocacy and education of the future surveyors of America. So Will is very heavily involved with both the Arizona Professional Land Surveyors Association, but also the United Surveyors of Arizona. So it's great to have Will with us today. So what is our schedule looking like? On the agenda, we will be doing a quick review of the Bad Elf Flex just to posture and make sure everybody understands the unit that will be discussing today. I think most of you at this point probably know about the Flex, so we won't spend too much time there. More importantly, Will's going to go into his custom workflow and give us a good overview of how he has been successful at Infinity Land Surveying. And last but not least, he's going to dive into a little bit more detail on some of his working procedures, specifically collecting control data. And when I say control data, both for the actual survey, the boundary survey and topo, but also control data for UAVs. Will and Infinity Land Surveying is getting into the drone market over the last year, and he's got probably some exciting news to tell you about that. It's been fun watching Will Wing take off. There's lots of flying jokes involved with that statement. And he'll go ahead and talk about some topography data collection, downloading the data and reviewing it from the Flex, keeping in mind that this is going to be a traditional survey workflow. A lot of the times we talk about GIS and mapping grade things, but today we're going to be focusing in on the geomatic side. Logistically speaking, we wasted a little bit of time in the beginning. I apologize. You got to love live demonstrations, but we got about 30 minutes, 25 minutes of presentation, 5 minutes of moderated Q&A. At 30 minutes in, if you want to go ahead and leave, no worries. We'll probably stick around for the question and answer if there's any other questions coming in. So again, just remember that you can type the questions into the chat, and I will make sure that Will has an opportunity at the end to answer. I'd also mention one more time, please go ahead and follow Bad Elf and Infinity Land Surveying on all the different social media platforms. We will be posting this recording, so if you would like to share this with anybody, you have that opportunity. All right, without further ado, let's quickly just review the Flex so we can get to the fun part. The Bad Elf Flex is the new GNSS solution that we have come up with. We affectionately say it's accurate, affordable, and versatile. We literally called it the Flex because it's flexible in pricing. It's flexible in terms of what kind of accuracy you get. It's flexible in terms of the device that you Bluetooth connect with it, whether you want it to be iOS, Android, or Windows. It is also flexible on the application, the third-party app that if you choose to use, you can leverage with the Bad Elf system as well. So when we say accurate, Will is going to be talking today about his system that he connects into the Arizona Department of Transportation to get a real-time kinematic correction. We're talking about 1 centimeter of accuracy, and you can see on the screen there, depending on your needs, we can do L-band satellite corrections in the 5 to 10 centimeter range, or just off the shelf in standard mode, you're in that 1 to 2 feet or 30 to 60 centimeters with SBAS. The unit is post-processing capable. We'll probably talk about that a little bit, using this with Opus to do some ground checks. It is a multi-frequency unit, multi-constellation, so we are absolutely tracking BeiDou, Galileo, GPS, and GLONASS. It is affordable, so starts at just at $3,000. If you are a government or school, we have GSA and EDU discounts. We could talk about that. If you are looking for the higher accuracy, we're topping out at all in and $5,500, so quite affordable comparatively to the other receivers on the market. And again, we give you that ability, same piece of hardware, and just depending on your needs, we can help you get to the accuracy and price you are willing to spend. One of the things that's really neat with the Bad Elf Flex is we've opened up a new way to utilize this type of technology. It is sort of a pay-to-play situation in which if you want to have a standard Flex in that 1 to 2 feet of accuracy, but on a Friday, you want to fly the drone and you want to tie down the data with some good control, you could use a 1-day token to unlock the extreme accuracy options and do that. Lastly, it's versatile. So you're going to notice that on the screen to your left, this thing looks a little bit different than the average hamburger GPS out there. It's self-contained. There are no cables that are going to need to connect. The antenna is actually underneath the cap. It's a helical antenna, a little bit different in terms of the way it's designed, but it allows for a little bit more orientational flexibility. You got a full day's operation, so lots of battery life on this. It is got a USB mini. That USB mini is on the go. So if you would like to plug in an external lithium, battery, lithium-ion battery from say Amazon, you could, and this sucker will run all day. IP65 certified, so water resistant, works in really hot conditions like here in Arizona. Also works in cold conditions. We are one of the few GPS on the market that still has a screen and buttons. So we actually can do some standalone data collection right from the unit itself. And I think we'll probably talk to that a little bit. And it is also important to know that we have a Bad Elf Flex app that's available on the iOS and Play Store that is a utility app, but also offers some standalone data collection. We're also excited to just kind of throw it out there that there's some really neat upgrades, or not upgrades, but developments coming down the pipeline that are going to be here, I'd say by the end of Q1 for everybody that has a Flex and are using the Flex for survey type activities. Stay tuned, follow us on social media, but we've got some exciting announcements coming. So this is the Flex in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and pass the torch over to Will. Will, could you maybe just go ahead and start talking about your traditional survey workflow, and feel free to give us any tips or tricks that you've found to be successful, and honestly, if you've had any pain points, we'd like to hear those things as well.
Oh, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a great tool, and I think as all surveyors, we have a lot of tools in our truck to remember that it's just another tool, and you've got to have the right situation and the right kind of site to use it on. And I mean, it's helped me out a lot. So I appreciate the opportunity to try to break it. I mean, we had it out there this summer, and 110 degrees, and we found the point where it turned off. So, typically most surveyors aren't going to work in those conditions, but, appreciate the opportunity to find out. So anyways, when we get a survey, a boundary survey, a topo survey, those are our two bread and butter surveys that we're doing these days. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the scope of the job. We're going to figure out, what kind of detail we're going to need on the job. Is this design topo? Is this pre-grade? Is this just a simple boundary? Or are we, stepping into a nightmare? So do a lot of research before we get out there. We pull all of our plats, our deeds. We like to get as much data as we can before we go out there. We put all this stuff together, and we're going to draft it all up in AutoCAD Civil 3D 2021. When you draft these things up, some of them end up out in la la land. Some of them are tied to state plane coordinates. So you really don't know what you get until you get it all drafted. You're going to fit all these puzzle pieces together. And luckily for us here in Maricopa County, we have a GDAC system. So we have the ability to download, 80% of the section corners that have been accepted within the county, which is a great head start for any calculations, because if you draft a plat, 9 times out of 10, that plat's going to be tied to a section corner. And if you've got that coordinate already in your hands, you're ahead of the game. So that's how we start out most of our jobs. Again, you do your homework, just like life, just like school, you do your homework, and then it makes the test easy. So our homework is done before we get out there. We get to test day, and usually, if you've done your homework, it makes things go by a lot quicker. So we've got our plats drafted, our legals drafted. Now we're going to calculate points at each of these endpoints, because we know we have it rotated and translated into our known coordinate system. And then we like to do an initial search on the boundary, and this doesn't always require a special trip to go out there to do this. A lot of times I know I have a job coming in the pipe. We're going to drive by that site. Well, let's drive over there and let's see, are these pins all sticking up? Do we have multiple pins on some corners, or are they not even visible? This is all going to determine how you're going to approach this job. So, we try to be efficient, try to not go to the site as many times as possible. So that's just one little way that we can do that without having to make a special trip, before we go out there. So I think we can move on to the next one, Nick. So we've got all our calcs. We've done an initial, site visit to know what's there, what isn't there. We get out to the site, and first thing we do when we get out is we do a little safety stand down, call it a tailboard meeting. We'll look around, and I work with my son a lot. He's pretty young, so it's real important that I lay out any kind of dangers. And most of the dangers that we see this time of year, obviously traffic, dogs are always an issue. So, you take a good look around, see what you got going, get that taken care of. And then we're going to go ahead and turn on the Bad Elf, take it out of the box, put it in an open area, turn it on. You want to let it cook, as we say, for a couple minutes before you start toggling your settings. Let it get its bearings. And so when you're toggling through, you'll notice the N-trip settings, and that is going to allow the Flex to use your phone to communicate to the core stations, the continually operated reference stations that are going to triangulate your position. So you get all these settings, and if you have questions on this, Nick has made 2 or 3 webinars that go over this step by step, because it's a little bit to get it in there, but once it's in there, you're dialed in. So you select your N-trip settings, and as soon as you're fixed, you're gonna watch the accuracy on the face of that thing go from feet to sub-centimeter, and it all depends on your surrounding. If you're standing out in the middle of the desert with no trees, it's great. Obviously when you get into some building areas and you've got block walls and trees, you're going to have to pay attention, because that's what really makes this equipment make or break you. Is you got to be aware of your surroundings. And all the GPS equipment, GNSS equipment is the same way. So so turn it on, let it cook, let it get fixed. When you watch that accuracy drop, you're ready to start collecting. Now if you've done your preliminary research and you've done an initial site drive by or whatever, you know where those points are, so you know where to start going. Now, typically, we like to tie our points to an NGS control point. So if you've ever downloaded an NGS control sheet, it gives you a go-to on exactly how to get to those points and if it's still there or not. So that's a good tip when you pull those NGS data sheets. Make sure you go to the go-tos before you print it, because at the very end it could say does not exist anymore, and then it's worthless to you. So again, homework goes back to homework. But we want to start with those NGS control points, high vertical order, GPS grade. Next pedigree down, we're going to use our county control points, and then section corners, and then property corners. So that's kind of our pedigree of control when we first get to a site. So we're going to shoot all those points. Now, it's not like a trimable data collector where you're going to have multiple options of doing different things with the data. That's coming, but right now we're just collecting. Okay, so we've got our boundary all shot, we've got our control points shot. Now we can start collecting topo at that point. So in this scenario, we're going to fly it also. Okay, so we've got the boundary done, or we've got it all shot. We haven't done any determinations yet. We're going to do that when we get back to the office. But we're going to go ahead and start getting our flight under control. So on the project that Nick was with me, hired a pilot from Flagstaff. Chad came down, and we worked together to where as soon as I was done with my boundary, he was ready with the panels, and he wanted to see how the flex worked. So he actually went around with us. We set our targets and we got moving. So we get the ground targets on the ground, and I got yelled at for using pipe plates. But whatever works best for you, preferably black and white targets. They work really good. So we'll set those around the perimeter of the site. 3 or 4 different ways to collect a shot on them. You can do a simple 1-second shot on it. You can set the time to do a timed observation as long as you want. When we were testing this out, I was doing static shots, 15-minute static shots on each point. Then I'd also do a rapid shot, and then I'd also do an average shot where it would take 2 or 3 measurements and average them out. With my testing, I really didn't notice a big difference in the two. Again, if there was some trees in the area, you got some buildings, I'd lean more on that static shot in that situation. But anyways, that's different ways you can collect when you get out there. And as soon as I was done, we give the word to the guy with the bird, and he's up in the air flying. So he's flying, he's got his spotter. Now we've come back to the truck, kind of reorganize, get our game plan going again, and we get a new plan to go out there and do the cross sections. So now we're done with boundary, we're done with setting targets. Now we're going to do some solid topo. So it's just like, it doesn't have codes like you would in a data collector. There's no line code yet that's coming, but the nice thing is you're doing it on your phone. So nowadays everybody's so good at texting, and you're doing your descriptions, you're just texting them in, and you can copy it, paste it. If you're shooting back a curb all the way down, or edge of pavement, or edge of dirt road all the way down the road, and just control V all the way down. And it's nice. I'm used to carrying lots of heavy equipment and data collectors, and this thing is just a little Ferrari. I mean, you can just hammer it out with it. So we knock out all the cross sections, all the surrounding roads. We're going to shoot any walls, any other sort of planimetric, wells, pads on the site. This particular site that we did really didn't have much on it, but it was really flat. So then we also, we need to tie down all the utilities. So power poles, water valves, we're going out to try to find the next utility, because they're going to want that in their plan, moving forward.
Hey, Will, can I interrupt you just real quick? So who's this guy here in the picture, and what is he doing trying to help you find?
That's my little guy I was talking about. That's Tanner. He's my little pinhound, and he's got 2 sisters at home, so he really just likes to get out of the house and get away. But yeah, that was up in Munns Park. That was on Sunday. Actually, we were up in the snow. We left 75-degree weather, drove up there to 32-degree weather, and we were digging through snow, ice, and then frozen mud to find corners. But again, my Trimble equipment is pretty old, so I don't have GLONASS capabilities. And up there in the trees, I pretty much didn't even turn it on. So being able to grab the flex, run out there, get a few topo shots, and again, you're watching your residuals. So I'm in the trees, I'm kicking the snow to get a ground shot. If I'm plus or minus 2 or 3 tenths, that's fine. We really just want to see what the site is doing. There's so much fall on there, but again, you got to pay attention to your surroundings and how you're using it and what you're using it for. So this is go ahead, Nick.
Oh, yeah, no, you go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, this is the site that me and Nick were on, right off of Pinnacle Peak Road. That big square that's empty there was the parcel that we did the ALTA on. And so this is just a typical record that we will use to draft, to calculate coordinates to get ourselves, situated on site. There's a lot of good information in these. You can go through the references, find other surveys that have also been tied to it. And yeah, just pieces of the puzzle.
Oh, that's great. So, hey, Will, we kind of did a 30,000-foot view. You had the bullet points of all the different steps involved. If we could maybe take a step back and slow down just a little bit and kind of go through these again. You've got here on the left and right some GPS, obviously the flex on the right. You were talking about the control panels for the aerial targets. My question to you here is, talk to me a little bit more about shooting a ground control point with the flex. What would you do once you're already connected to N-Trip? What are the actual buttons and things you would push to collect this GCP?
With the flex, it's just log data, log point. I mean, I think you have 4 different options to log the data. You can instant point, you can log it by a timed a set time, then you can go in and control that set of time, and you can also do it as a 15-minute static collection. And if you do it that way, you can take that static file, the TO file, and process it through Opus, and it will spit out your state plane coordinate position as well as your ortho elevation to NAVD 88 datum. So, and again, we tested both because sometimes you don't have that 15 minutes, the way the project's bid to sit on every, if you're doing 100 panels, you don't have time to do that. So, but you don't always have to use a panel as well. So you can also use a PID, point identification. So if you've got, on this particular site on the left, that was the Border Patrol station down in Nogales, and they had a huge helicopter landing pad. Well, the landing pad is a big cross. So one of the corners of the cross, we shot that, saves us time. It's a great identifier, and it's a very, very sharp point. So, little things like that can save you a lot of time as well. And sometimes you can use them as a check. If you walk by something that looks, very unique and pointy, take a shot on it. It doesn't have to be a PID, but when you're processing your flight, you can use that as a checkpoint, almost a blind panel, if you will. So,
and
yeah,
Will, you had mentioned real quick, you said you're talking about the vertical coordinate system. Now, you're going to actually, I know the Flex has different options, but for what you do, you selected a geoid, right? You used either 12 or 18 right there on the Flex. 18.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why. And so when we first started doing this, I was like, well, I believe it because it says it, but I don't have anything to check it with. So it was nice to have my other equipment out there, which I've been using for, the last 15 years. And I know it's solid to be able to check it with that. And when they check, it makes a surveyor smile.
That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about collecting topography data. I love on the bottom there, you said, always double check your antenna and rod heights. Have you ever had a bad instance where you got a little bit upside down because you got back to the office and realized you didn't have that set appropriately?
Oh yeah, yeah. And every surveyor's done it. You know, we have telescoping rods, and they have preset holes drilled in them. You know, at every even foot or half a foot. So you know you can't get a shot, so you raise it up, and you know you put the pin in, and you forget to change it, and then you know you don't know how many you did that way. So what we've done as a QC measure is every panel or every point that we shoot that we're using for control gets a photo just like you see, and you can actually see the pin in the rod, and you know that that's the height. So if there's any question, we can always go back to the photos and look. So because trust me, I've been in the boat where I didn't have that, and it's a long drive back to Prescott Valley to shoot that one again. So you know, live and learn. But it's it's a good workflow to have, and that's, you know, that's what we were trying to do, is, you know, figure out a way that find a good solid workflow where we can take this tool and just, you know, use it to its fullest.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it makes it easy too if you're using your phone or tablet. You know, these new iPhones these days have such awesome cameras. You know, you can always attach a photo, like you said, to the data that you're talking about.
Right. But
Oh,
one
go
thing
ahead.
I will say though is that think about using your phone is nice, but you might want to think about getting a separate, maybe like an iPod or something that's not your phone, because
Yeah, you
it
don't want to get a
happens. Getting
call in, right?
calls. Yeah, I'm getting called. I'm like, well, I'm doing great. If people would get calling me, I could keep working out here, you know?
No, that's a great point.
But
We should let everybody know, if you are going to be professionally using the Bad Elf Flex, we do recommend designating, aka a controller, so buying a tablet or a phone that is dedicated to that. Because like what Will's talking about, I'm the one who always ends up calling him. He's out working, and I call him, and next thing you know, the screen is changing and it's slowing down your workflow. But so Will, we're getting a little tight on time, so I want to keep moving. Talk to me a little bit about let's talk the office side of the world now. We've gone out, we've shot our control. Well, let's start. We did our research. You got all of your XYZ coordinates drafted in. You got that. We shot our control. We shot our corners. We got the topo done. We are now back in the office, and I know the Flex creates these project files. Can you maybe talk about the back of the office workflow?
you bet. Well, actually, to be more efficient, we do this in the truck on the way to the office. The guy that's not driving will do exactly what's shown in the pictures there. Plug in the USB cord and plug in our USB stick, and you turn the unit on, go to the export logs selection, hit go, and the little light will start blinking on the USB, and it doesn't take longer than, I mean, I've shot, I mean, we had 800 shots on one job, and it downloaded in, I think, 2 minutes. Goes right on the USB stick, and you get way more than what you need. You know, the CSV file gives you way more gives you enough to be dangerous as a surveyor.
Yeah, so here's that CSV that Will is talking about. He's got a lot of different columns highlighted, but I think the important part here is you can see that you're collecting a ton of metadata when you're using the Flex. And we had asked Will earlier, or I was asking Will what geoid he used, and was he going to be, say, using ellipsoidal height or orthometric height. You can see column G, you've got ellipsoidal height there. And then if you go all the way to the right, if you see column A, B, and AC, you can see the antenna height, and then also the ortho height. So you can see the offset, and then the point names that he's typing in at the end. That's pretty awesome. So, Will, what do you think about all this? A lot of data, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. But you know, we're familiar with this process because when you export a file from the county, when you get the GDAX control file, it's a huge, you know, you have to select the format that you want it to come in, and it never comes in right. So I mean, anyone that's in this business, you have to know how to edit CSV files. So you know, it's part of the game, and that's what we do here. We take what we want. We take the point name, we take the latitude, the longitude, the ellipsoid, and the description. Now it's great that the Flex gives you the orthometric elevation right on site, but what we found is that if you create a CSV file that's point number, latitude, longitude, and elevation, then when you put it into your third-party software, TBC, it can't. You have to use an ellipsoid height. it can't read an elevation. It can't go backwards. Okay, so but it's a great check because you put the ellipsoid height in there and you let Trimble, project that, and then you have your other set of coordinates to check it with. So it's kind of a check on itself, and live and learn. So now we don't use, the elevation is there. It's nice to have in the fields, especially on screen, where you're at right off the bat. But when you download it, you've got to use the ellipsoid height because it's got to use that mathematical model to project to whatever projection you're working with. So
that's wonderful information for anybody out there that's traditionally been using TBC for the last several decades. So is it a fair statement that the Bad Elf Flex just integrates right into TBC workflows?
Yeah, I like it. They already have one in there. There was one, you can see that top one, it was already preset. I didn't create that one. But I was using I think the second from the bottom point lat. Yeah. Well, I guess it's kind of the very bottom one there. I used that one and it worked also. The nice thing is that and one other thing is these are metric. So you need to change your units to metric before you drop them in there. So that's another little kicker that got me. But then once you drop them in, you can convert the units back to international feet, not survey feet, and you're good to go.
That's awesome.
And
then kind of bringing it home, you've processed the data. You're then going to import that into AutoCAD.
Yeah, so once you have it in TBC, first thing I do is I'll export out a KML, and I want to make sure that those points are landing where they were supposed to be, that we're not out in the Indian Ocean somewhere. Make sure that everything's correct before it goes into AutoCAD. So plus we also keep those KML files. That's kind of it's like our internal GIS to keep track of all of our jobs. So we have a separate file system for that. And then that XYZ coordinate file gets exported out of TBC into a CSV file that can now go into AutoCAD, Carlson, whatever drafting software you're using. And everything has already been adjusted, state plane coordinate, NAVD 88 datum, or whatever you're using, you're there. So you're ready to start drafting and start working, start building your surfaces, start drafting in your boundaries. It's served up on your plate, ready to go. So on the left side, you can see what it looks like when it first comes in. You can see, we definitely did cross sections on the north side of the road, on the east side of the road, going north-south, going east-west. We did some cross sections through the middle of the site. We tied down an old a well pad from a well site that was there. We shot some fences, and then we brought in we already did the drafting for all the subdivisions that you're seeing, on each side of this lot. So then we're bringing in our points and we're seeing how those boundary points hit our record. And then we're going to do some fine tuning there as far as the boundary goes to make all that stuff work. We get our boundaries set, and then we start drafting our topo. First thing we're going to do, start building our break lines. And then now we've got one other step. When you're coming out of TBC, you've got to get your targets out of there also. So I always separate my targets from the rest of the files so that I can send those off to our UAV professional so that he can get us a nice pretty ortho and we've been playing around with different formats there. But anyway, that's another step. I didn't want to skip that. So we got our break lines. We're going to create a surface off of our break lines and our ground shots. And then we're going to bring in the ortho on top of that. And it's beautiful. And I mean, you can get 3D models that you can work with from Pix4D that are we're getting into that also. So again, they're all tools, and it's all depends on the scope of the job. Sometimes you don't need all that stuff, but the technology, it's all starting to mesh together, and to be able to harness it like this, it's awesome.
So, thank you, Will. You mentioned the right tool for the right trade, and I think this is a great segue to our last slide. Will sent me this picture the other day, and there's his pinhound, as he said. And Will has fashioned his Bad Elf Flex to a go-kart, and you can see here it is very rugged, and so you can do some auto topoing pretty quickly with that right there. And I got gotta say, now that is a fun topo job. I'll come work for you, Will, and we can go collect some data.
Well, that's actually, we're looking into, we do some volunteer work for the Black Canyon Historical Preservation Society, and they are doing work with the Arizona Trail Coalition. So we're going to go out and help them map. I think they have 123 trails in Cave Creek that haven't been mapped, and so we're going to go out with them and try it out. And I thought this would be a good test, but looking at the area, a lot of it is in national park, so motorized vehicles are out. We have to talk to Mr. Ponce about his bicycle.
Get the e-bike.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, all right. So in lieu of our time, we're a little bit over. I just want to make mention for all of the guests that came today. Thank you so much. You have all been automatically entered into a Bad Elf cap contest. And so we will be selecting one of you, and we will email you if you are selected, and you will be getting a cool new Bad Elf hat. They're also available online if you're interested. And last but not least, I want to just have a quick question and answer before we end the recording. You can also reach us at sales@bad-elf.com. But I also would like to encourage you to follow Will on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Will does quite a bit of posting. He's a little bit of a social media hound like me. So definitely make sure you're following us. We will be posting this video. I do have one question here for you, Will. There's a person that's interested in collecting non-survey grade data, such as points and lines. Is it really necessary to set up control points? So in your opinion, as a surveyor, do you need to set up a control points in a data set if you're really going to go, kind of collect GIS grade data?
It depends, I mean, so one other thing I didn't talk about is that I do a lot of site topos in areas down in Arcadia where there's trees and it's tight and you really can't use GPS. So another great option this thing has given me is I can jump out of the truck, hammer in 2 nails, maybe 3, shoot those nails, export the CSV, get the coordinates out of it, drop that in my data collector, throw those into my conventional robot setup, and now I'm on control. I'm in state plane coordinate. I'm on the correct datum, and I can start working. So are those control points? No, but will they get you going? And you still have the option to go tie a couple section corners or centerline monuments, whatever you want. But yeah, I don't think you need control points if you're just doing that. But again, it's in scope. How tight are your tolerances? But yeah, if you just want to take it, get out of the truck, turn it on, start collecting points and lines, yeah, you're good to go. I don't think you need control unless the job designates it. So,
Well, I love your answer there. The true surveyor in you, I would have never answered that with total station, but that just shows me that you're actually a real surveyor. But
yeah,
but I mean, it goes without saying, if you need those tolerances, you can use a GPS like this and then start shooting off of it. I think that's an awesome example. But if you're out in the field and you need to just collect GIS grade data, 1 to 2 feet of accuracy is going to be probably pretty good. Let's see here. Question for you. Have you used the Flex under heavy canopy, and how much longer did you need to collect a good point if under thick cover compared to clear sky? Will, I'm having flashbacks of being in a ravine with you.
The bottom of the Agua Fria riverbed. Yeah. And the good thing is that you can see the residuals. So, it's going to be up to you. If you're doing a boundary and you're trying to shoot a property corner in the canopy and that residual is telling you, 4 inches, then I wouldn't use it. What I would do and what we did on Sunday is we would back out to where the sky is clear. We set a nail, we set another nail, and we swing tie that property corner in there. You've got 2 solid points that you shot. The residuals were low, and you double tape them in and swing tie that point in there. It's just another option that you have with it. So, but yeah, you just watch that, because it'll shoot it for you. It'll collect the point, but if you're not paying attention to that residual, when you download it, you're going to see a hole. You're going to see, something's not going to be right because it's just too much interference.
No, that makes total sense. All right, let me see here. A couple more questions. How how long does it take you to get the Flex set up and start collecting your site, if you had to guess?
Well, initial setup, you know what I mean? When you first buy it, just like any software, any tool that you get, it's going to take a little bit to get all of your settings set. You know, you figure out what your rod heights are, and you know, is that an old tip or a brand new tip on the end of your rod? You know, every little bit counts. So you're going to take a little bit of time at first getting it set up, but once it's set up, I mean, I don't touch any of the settings. I get out of the truck and turn it on, and you know, I give it to my son. Here, you know, go shoot that dirt road all the way down. On your way back, shoot all those valves and get those poles. He's like, all right, I'm gone, you know, and there's no, you know,
So
no
can I
line code or
quote you
anything.
on the fact that, and your son's what, about 12?
Yeah,
A 12-year-old can use a Bad Elf Flex. Is that what I'm hearing?
pretty much. Yeah.
All right. Can a data dictionary be built for collecting multiple kinds of features, i.e. more GIS than survey points? Is this what the Bad Elf Flex app can do? And you know what, maybe I can answer this one. So the Bad Elf Flex can collect features, and there's some updates coming down that I was alluding to earlier. But quite frankly, if you are looking to use a data dictionary, this is where we would encourage you to use a third-party app like the Esri Collector or Field Maps, Survey 123. You could do the Microsurvey Field Genius. Or Avenza Maps, GIS Kit or Pro. These apps have more of your traditional data dictionaries that you would be used to, where you can have a feature class built with customized attributes. But yes, that is coming in the Flex app. What Will was explaining is he was taking more of a traditional workflow using survey codes. So surveyors like to type in 2-3-digit codes that are symbolized later in AutoCAD, versus where the GIS world, we sort of pre-create these feature classes. But the Flex works great with, you know, the Esri ecosystem, any of those sort of things. Oh, we got another question. Let's see here. I'm not a surveyor, but use the Bad Elf for measuring GCPs for both natural resource management and engineering projects at public utilities. An engineer asked me for a 3D model using an old vertical data in NGVD 29. Oh gosh, City of Phoenix, I feel like, uses NGVD 29. Having other nightmares, flashbacks, whatever you want to call them, to match original drawings. Can I record these in the Bad Elf, or do I need to convert this after the measurements are taken? Caveat: I have a GIS background and don't use CAD. I hand these point clouds over to someone who is able to translate them between cartographers and engineers. Any thought about that, Will? How you would go about it? I can say as of right now, obviously the NGVD 29 datum is not a current datum in the Flex, but how would you probably go about doing this?
You know, it's the thing about that datum transformation is it's not a direct shift. So it depends on what part of the valley you're in. You know, further north, it's close to 2 feet, but in other areas, it's down 1.8. So you don't want to just put a numerical shift. That you could do that, you know, in the data, or you could do that in the app. You could just go and change your rod height by 1.2. If you know what the shift is, and you can get on the GDAX County, the printouts for each section corner will give you what that dimension is, and you could do it that way on one site. But me personally, I would download it into a CSV file and do it in Excel, you know, because then you can see everything that you're doing and it's all visual. And
Will, I don't know if you saw, I saw a funny picture on LinkedIn the other day, and it had this like bell curve of, you know, in school you learn geometry and trigonometry, algebra, and then you get to like calculus, and then you get out into your career and you use Excel. Right?
yeah, but no, these questions are great, especially the GIS. You know, that's the direction that we want to go to. You know, I just, the fact that this unit can work live in the Esri products, that's where we want to go, because you know, for so long the survey world and the GIS world have been, you know, on two different sides. And I mean, I just see this world coming together, and the technology and you know, the way that, I mean, the first time that GIS was ever explained to me, it was like light just went off in my head. The power that this could have, you know, because we do so many jobs where if you could just take that data and put that into a solid GIS and have it maintained, then now, you know, you've got great accuracy and you've got great information and they all line up with each other, and that's good for everybody. And that's where we're trying to get into. You know, we love surveying, we love, you know, doing boundaries and topos, but we just feel that there's a whole nother element out there that we can help, and then we can, you know, work together in that. So that's where we're trying to get to, in the, you know, being able to know the difference between, you know, needing sub-centimeter accuracy and not. You know, if we're collecting fire hydrants for the city of Glendale, do we need, you know, sub-centimeter? Probably not. So, you know, having a tool that can give you whatever you need when you need it is pretty nice. And plus, to be able to see it, you know, if I'm using my iPad and I can see right where I'm at on the map as I'm going, that's awesome. I mean,
no, that's great. Okay, two more quick questions. We're way over at this point, but I appreciate everybody hanging tight. Kyle asks, how are you doing stakeout? And I can actually answer for you, Will. Right now, the Flex, natively on the Flex app, does not have a stakeout routine, but I alluded to it earlier. There's some really fun stuff coming very, very quickly. So just stay tuned on the stakeout. If you need to do stakeout right now with the Bad Elf Flex, we would encourage you to go to a third-party software like Microsurvey's Field Genius that has completely, you know, a full build-out. But natively within the app, wink, wink, nod, nod, you may see that here sooner than later. The other question was, what's Bad Elf doing to prepare for the SPCS 2022 transition? So the new datum in 2022. Colin, just to let you know, we have heard from the grapevine that 2022 is probably a gross misestimate on when they think they're going to be able to actually get this out. We've heard it's closer probably to 2025. But one of our engineers, Larry Fox here, he works with Opus extensively. We have one pretty famous geodesist here in town, Brian Fisher, that we keep in contact with, and he is the rep from USGS on that. And so we're just keeping a pulse on it. The moment it actually rolls out, it'll be easy to upgrade. So we are keeping a pulse on it. So guys, everybody out there, thank you so much. Will, I'm going to give you one more chance. Any prophetic declarations? What do you think? How do you want to end? Something good. On the spot, buddy.
Well, just be safe out there. That's my biggest thing. You know, I drive by guys standing out in the middle of the road with no cones, no spotters, no, you know, I mean, just, it's not worth it. Be safe, you know, be aware of your surroundings. You know, that's, you know, whether it's looking at that screen to see what your residuals are, or just looking around to make sure there's not, you know, somebody getting ready to go through your truck, or just anything, you know, just be aware, stay safe. That's how I'll end it.
All right. Safety is no accident. Thank you, Will Wing. We really appreciate it. For all of you out there, again, thank you. You can reach us at sales@badelf.com, or you can follow Will online. Adios. This is going to wrap it up. We really appreciate it. Stay safe, everyone.